All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are very excited about this next guest here. Now, this guy initially was a basketball marketing rep for Nike, where he helped administrate and operate some of the most highly acclaimed basketball camps, the Nike All-American camps, skills camps hosted by Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, and Vince Carter, just to name a few. He is in the JMU Sports Hall of Fame. You know, my alumni, so I feel some type of way about this guy right here. And he's currently the Iowa Hawkeyes men's basketball assistant coach. So without further ado, Mr. Sherman, the Bowtie Man, Dillard.
I need to hire you as my public relations guy. Just for you.
Hey, man, listen. When I looked at your track record, I said, well, look. First off, he's in the JMU Sports Hall of Fame. I'm a JMU alum as well, man. So, yeah, I said that touches my heart. But then when I saw how you dress, I said, oh, yeah, I'm excited about this guy here.
Oh, man, JMU. So what year did you graduate from JMU?
Man, so my last year playing there would have been 09 going into that 10 season, but I officially graduated in 12.
Okay.
Yes,
good.
Indeed, man. But hopping into this interview, man, so just talk about, man, when did you realize you had a passion for coaching?
You know, it's funny. Obviously, I played high school basketball and ended up winning a scholarship to James Madison University. Mike Patello recruited me. I wasn't heavily recruited, but I had a high school coach in Bassett, Virginia, right on the borderline between Virginia and Carolina there. And I thought the world of him. His name was Ernie Nestor. Mm-hmm. And he taught me how to play the game of basketball, and he worked with me every day after practice. He took me to certain camps during the summer months, and basically he was responsible for me winning the scholarship to James Madison University, gave me the exposure I needed. But once I started playing college basketball, I began to reflect, and I got, you grow a little bit, you have some maturity, and I recall thinking what a major impact this guy, Ernie Nestor, had on my life. And so midway through my experience at James Madison, I decided I wanted to be a college basketball coach, and all because of my high school coach, the way he treated me and how he turned my life around. And I said, you know what, I'm going to do that when I grow up and graduate from college and have an opportunity to give back to some kids. And that's when I began to think about being a college basketball coach. It all worked out. So I've been doing it now for 35 years with the, that 5-year stint with Nike. And that was still, you're working with kids and you're helping them develop and become better, not only better players, but better people.
I like that. Now, being that you're a guy that had so much success playing at the collegiate level, and then you obviously were drafted by the Pacers, how has that helped you as a coach?
A lot of times, you can become a good collegiate basketball coach or a good coach without playing the game. I think it helped that I had a good high school coach that taught me the basics and fundamentals. And in high school, as I said, and then when I got to college, I'm working with Mike Patello, who went on to become an NBA coach. I'm sure you know Mike Patello, the art and illustrator. Lou Campanelli was a great coach at James Madison, took him to 4 NCAA tournament appearances. So I had the foundation. I was taught well. And basically, upon graduating from James Madison, I was drafted, as you said, by the Indiana Pacers and tried out with the Kansas City Kings. Just never made it, but I always had a desire to coach. And my first coaching job, get this, was I ended up going back home to my hometown in Martinsville, Virginia. And my first coaching opportunity was I coached 9th grade basketball. And also during the spring months, I coached girls track or women's track. That was something else. That's for another day to talk about that experience. But at any rate, but I got lucky. I think it was the spring of my first year coaching at Laurel Park High School in Martinsville, Virginia. I received a phone call from Lefty Drizel, the head coach at the University of Maryland. And prior to that, every summer when I was at James Madison as a player, one of the benefits and one of the things I decided to do was I wanted to work summer basketball camps. And the camp I worked mostly was Lefty Drizel's basketball camp at the University of Maryland. And so every summer I would work that camp. And the benefit of working that camp was, Lefty would have some of the best college players in the country come in and serve as counselors. But the highlight of the camp was the counselor scrimmages. And twice a day we would scrimmage. So, I'm planning with Lucas, John Lucas and, Buck Williams was coming into the program at that time, Lenny Elmore, Tom McMillan, people like that. And Ralph Sampson would be a camper. I'm sure you know Ralph, he grew up in Harrisonburg, Virginia. And what I said was Lefty had called me and said, sure, what are you going to do this? You coming back to work in camp? And I said, Coach, I'd love to come back and work. He says, what are you doing now? So I'm coaching high school basketball. I said, a ninth grade team. I said, we won a district championship. He said, great for you. He said, you know what? I want to talk with you. Come work my camp. And after camp, you and I will sit down and we'll talk about an opportunity to coach at the collegiate level. And as it turned out, he offered me that job that summer. And I owe a lot to Coach for giving me that opportunity because I was, fresh out of college, relatively speaking. And it's very rare that you come from coaching ninth grade basketball to coaching at a college program and a college program with the namesake of University of Maryland and the ACC. So I'm grateful for Lefty for giving me that opportunity. And once I got involved with coaching, I just thought it was great in terms of the level I was at, the exposure we got, and working with some of the great players like Len Bias, Albert King, Buck Williams. And, I had 6 years there at Maryland, and I just I fell in love with the game. I fell in love with the craft, and I continued to work on my craft. And here I am now, like I said, 35 years later, coaching collegiate basketball. And I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. I really wouldn't.
I like that.
Now, obviously, you had one of the best college basketball players on your roster this year with Iowa, actually the past 3 years, in Luka Garza. Now, he has a decision coming up whether to stay in the NBA draft or to come back to school. Have you had any conversations with him, or just what advice in general do you have for him?
Yeah, coincidentally, we just spoke today about his situation. Oh, wow. Our guys came back on campus last Monday, and so they are involved with voluntary training, strength and conditioning, and they do have open gym where they get in and play some pickup games. But, what Luka, first and foremost, is a terrific human being, and he's an outstanding basketball player, as you very well know. I think he won like 5 or 6 Player of the Year awards this past season. And he has a chance to come back for his senior year, a team that I think we've been picked to finish top 5 in the country, preseason top 5. So he's got some decisions to make. He is in the process of talking with a few NBA teams. I think this virus and has put a kind of a damper on all of that. He has not had an opportunity to go and to any workouts, if you will. So everything he's been doing with some NBA teams, I would think it'd be about a half a dozen or maybe even more. He's been doing the Zoom calls, and I'm sure he's going to do well in those situations. But he has until, I want to say, sometime in August before he has to make up his mind as to whether he's going to keep his name in the NBA draft. And more power to him. The young man has done great here. We'd love to have him come back. But if he has an opportunity, first and foremost, to be able to be drafted in the first round or high, maybe second round, then I think it's hard for him to turn that down. I think what would have to happen, I think he's got to assess whether he's going to get some guaranteed money. But I still think that's way down the road with him. I'm just guessing. I'm speculating right now, knowing the young man the way I know him and knowing his father. I think he's probably leaning towards coming back to school. And that's just me with saying that. He has not indicated that to this coaching staff. And I've talked to a few NBA folks about him. And obviously a young man that has the ability to score the way he has, he had, I think it was 25 games where he scored 20 or more points during the season. And he's doing that against Big Ten competition. And, the Big Ten arguably is one of the toughest conferences in America.
Absolutely.
So he has a chance. He has size. He's 6'10", has the girth. I think the thing that helps him out and what makes him an elite player is the fact that he's so crafty. And then secondly, he has an unbelievable work ethic. I've never coached a young man. Maybe Buck Williams comes close at the University of Maryland. But this young man, Luka Garza, is just, he's a machine in the weight room and all season workouts, conditioning. and that's paid big dividends for him. And it came out this year and had a phenomenal year for us. And if he comes back, he could probably be Player of the Year on a national level.
I like it.
Yeah, for sure. How do you think, you obviously mentioned some stuff there. How do you think just overall his game would translate to the NBA? Like if he does come back, is there anything you think he could work on, or just what do you think he does right now that would translate really well?
The number one thing is he's a 6'10", kind of stretch five.
Yeah.
Can knock down a three. Didn't shoot it great this year, but he will be an outstanding 3-point shooter. And his ability, as I talked about, the work ethic, how he will fight for position. And I think he's a good inside-outside player, fundamentally sound in every aspect, very efficient, knows how to use either right or left hand. Very good footwork, sort of like a Kareem Olajuwon in that regard. Up and under moves, step through moves, counter moves. And again, I think he could score at that level. A lot depends. I've seen a lot of college players go on to the NBA, and it depends on the system that team is running, whether he could fit in. But I think there's no doubt in my mind that he's capable, skill-wise, to play at that level.
Yeah, I definitely
can he run
noticed
the floor?
that with the post
Yes, he can run. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I definitely noticed that with the post moves, everything you were saying, like he's got some moves down low for sure. And then you add that add that ability to hit the three, like you mentioned, and just continue to get better at that with where the NBA is going right now.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. In the NBA, obviously, one big thing for bigs, so 4 and 5 minutes to be able to guard ball screen defense, and can he hedge or show flat and be able to get back to his guy when the guy rolls? He'll have to continue to work on that. He did well for us this year. We were very good defensively this year, and he was able to guard. We got away from hard hedging or heavy hedging. We just showed flat, and he was able to go 2 steps with that guard, prevent that guard from turning the corner and getting downhill, and then he was able to retreat and get back to the front of the low post on this guy, and did a very good job of that. And he's one. I tell you, another thing that helps kids make the next jump is having cerebral qualities, being able to understand the game and think the game. And he's a big student of the game, and I think that's going to bode well for him down the road.
That's awesome, man. Now, your team last year was in line to make it to the NCAA tournament for the 4th time, which over the past 6 years, which it would have been. But obviously the COVID-19 situation put a damper on that. But ultimately, man, talk about how your team handled that situation, receiving that news that the tournament was going to be canceled, and also what it's been like for you guys now that things have opened back up.
Ironically enough, when we were in Indianapolis, it was a Thursday afternoon. I was on the road the night before recruiting, and basically I just flew in that night. And typically when the team gets in, we check into the hotel, we have a dinner, we watch film. I wasn't a part of that, but I showed up late. And everybody was just, I met them in the lobby. We were talking, getting ready for the next game the next day. But as I was traveling, I kept checking the internet, social media, and there was a lot of talk about this virus thing and the potential of maybe shutting down some games and not playing. And I do recall when I went to bed that night, I felt like we would not play the next day. And as fate would have it, I woke up that morning, and I was going early to the arena to scout the opponents playing the first game. We were going to play, I want to say it was 12 noon, maybe a little bit later. So I got to the arena early. Teams were in there warming up, and the security people would not allow us to go into the arena. Wow. And I knew something was up at that point, and they held us at bay for about 30 minutes. And then there was a moment where I saw Kevin Warren, the commissioner of the Big Ten, and a horde of other people, I think it's the staff, they were all walking out. And I checked my phone, and then I saw on the phone that they had canceled the tournament, that they would not be playing that day. And so, I get back to the hotel, the lobby is filled with our players. Quite frankly, some kids are crying because the seniors, they wanted that opportunity to play, and that was their last opportunity to play in the Big Ten tournament. So we huddled as a staff and huddled as a team and talked about it. And essentially, that was the last time we were together with the team. We flew back on a chartered flight, and kids had an opportunity to go home to their respective homes. And as I said, last week, last Monday was the first time we've seen them since that period in March at the Big Ten tournament. So they came back home. So you asked me how they're dealing with it. I think it's like everybody else in the country. I think it's not the norm for us. We missed out on a lot of activity. They missed out on schooling, in-class schooling. Everything they were doing, they finished virtually or remotely from home, online courses and things of that nature. And here at the university, what we've done is we've had these pilot programs. So in essence, men's basketball, women's basketball, football, and wrestling, they brought us back on campus. Obviously, everybody had to get tested and go through the protocol. And now we're here able to get into our office for the first time in like 2 months. And the guys are able to work out with a strength and conditioning coach voluntarily with weight training, as I said earlier. And then they have an opportunity to go open gym. So it's just been really, really strange and really different than normal for us. But a lot of the players I know, and speaking with them, they prefer to be back here on campus, even though school's not open. But they all wanted to be together and get united and start to work on next season and get ready for next season. So, again, we're 2 weeks in, and everything's been going great so far. Hopefully the NCAA has passed that has opened it up that I want to say is in July 20th, we could start working with the kids and doing individual workouts with the kids.
Okay.
But before that, we haven't been able to do anything with them.
Now, you mentioned Len Bias and being at Maryland earlier. Do you have a favorite Len Bias story you like to share? Like, from everything I've heard, he was supposed to be the next Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
His highlights look crazy. Can you vouch for that?
Absolutely. I was on the staff when we recruited Len, and Len went to Northwestern High School, which was, maybe, I want to say 500 yards from the university. I don't think it was a no-brainer that we were going to get him, but he committed to us early, came in as a freshman. And, you watched him in high school and you said, yeah, this young man has a chance. And then, I don't think I've ever witnessed a player's explosion so quickly. Like, he came in as a freshman, and during preseason, he was good. He was talented, had that explosion, that jumping ability, and that really nice high-arcing jump shot. And he was such a sponge. Like, he wanted to get better. You can tell he was passionate about the game. So he was always in the gym. And as I would drive in and park right outside the Cole Fieldhouse there was a tunnel that you walked through. And almost every day I came in the morning, there would be Len Bias in there. He'd find a manager or someone to retrieve the balls for him, and he's working on his game. And he made a rapid growth, a big jump just from high school to his freshman year. And then obviously you saw the progression from freshman year to his sophomore year and then his junior year. I coached him for 3 years. I left after his junior year and went out to join my former college coach, Lou Campanelli, when he took the job at Cal Berkeley, University of California, in the Pac-10 and at that time. But a phenomenal young man, great young man, a terrific family. And, it's just it saddens me. Like, I got that call when he passed. I'll never forget. I was lying in bed with my wife out in California, Alameda, California, and I got an early call that morning. He passed, and a friend said, Lenny's dead. And I said, but what are you talking about? And obviously, I was filled with emotion. Every time I talk about him, if I see the highlights of 30 for 30 that comes on ESPN, I can't help but cry because it's such a tragedy. And I knew his mother, Lanice, and father. They were just terrific people, always at every game, coming into practices and things of that nature. But he was a joy to coach, obviously. And, everybody talks about how do you coach him, what did you do to make him better? Like, a lot of it was he just had self-discipline to do what needed to be done. And he was a hardworking young man, a very coachable young man. And as I talked about Luka, like you get guys like that, they have that mindset, like a Kobe Bryant, LeBron James. You just see it in them. They're passionate about getting better. They're a sponge about everything. They listen, and that's the way Len Bias was. And that was the time when I was still playing a little bit when I coached at Maryland. I thought I could still play a little bit, and I remember part of my thing sometimes Lefty would say, Sherman, you got to get out and play. So I would play with the guys, scrimmage with the guys some days in practice, and he was so strong and physical. Like he could just terrorize everybody in practice. And, but just a loving kid, funny kid off the court, just unbelievably, just a great character type kid. And again, it's a sad story. And not a day goes by that I don't think about Lenny and think about the times being there with him. And, I have an opportunity to see some of the former players like Tony Massenberg that played with him, Keith Gatlin, Jeff Baxter, and obviously being in the Big Ten here at Iowa when we travel to play Maryland, who's in the Big Ten. I see a lot of those former players that all come back at times. And, in fact, Tony Massenberg wrote a book, and it's a great book. And the last game we played there this past season, he handed me the book, an autographed copy of the book that he had autographed. And I read that in like one sitting. It's a terrific book. And he said it's titled Lessons from Lenny. And it talks about how Tony Massenberg, who also became a great player in his own right, he played 15 years in the NBA, but he modeled his game and lived his life because of Len Bias. And so that's just, those guys are really well connected, really close, those Turpin guys.
Sounds like a good book.
Absolutely.
Might have to check that out.
Yeah, it's a great book.
Now, when we're talking about, just you and staying in the coaching realm and things like that, you had a chance to coach at your alma mater, JMU, James Madison University. So just talk about what was that like after being such a successful player there?
It was fun. I don't know. When I went to the University of Maryland, I thought, okay, this is a great gig. I'm in ACC, I'm on national TV, ESPN, you name it. And I go to Cal and Coach Kevin Johnson out there, so we have much success there. From there, I go to Georgia Tech with Bobby Crimmins and got Kenny Anderson and James Forrest and Dennis Scott. I was dealing with a lot of great players and had success at the highest level. But every step of the way, I was always thinking about what it would be like to come back home. And I consider JMU home. I grew up about 2.5 hours south of Harrisonburg. And I always said I would hope that I would have an opportunity one day to come back home and be the head coach at James Madison University. Well, as it turns out, my first head coaching job was at Indiana State. I spent 6 years at Georgia Tech with Bobby Crimmins and decided that I wanted to step out and become a head coach. And I accepted a head coaching job at Indiana State, Terre Haute, Indiana, in the Missouri Valley. And I was there for 3 years. And at the end of my third year is when Lefty left JMU. And I received a call from the administration at James Madison and saying, would you be interested in coming back to James Madison? I can say this now. I didn't want to say it, and I've never said this publicly, but I was trying to get the thing going at Indiana State. I didn't want to start something and not finish it. We weren't great at Indiana State, but I saw that we could be very good. And the administration at Indiana State, they were terrific to me. They were getting ready to give me an extension, a long extension at Indiana State. But I decided to get on a plane and come check out James Madison. And I told the president, I said, I'm not going to come out for an interview. I don't need you to placate me and say, hey, listen, we want to show Sherman some love because he played here. I wanted to be serious. If I'm coming out to interview, then I want to have an opportunity to be offered the job. And so I got on the flight and we accepted the job and I was there for 7 years and got up to a pretty decent start and had success. I think after my third year was, coach of the year in the league. We won 20 games. But at that time, the Colonial, and I think it's still the same way, the Colonial League was one of those kind of like one-team NCAA tournament leagues. And so, it was hard to find a way to get a tournament. So the year we won 20 games, I still didn't get an NCAA bid. And as you very well know, in the business now, in college basketball, it's like you judge don't get into the NCAA tournament. But I enjoyed my time there. The administration was terrific with me. The fans were great. I just loved walking around that campus and remembering my days as a student athlete there. And I think the thing that helped me there, particularly early in my career at James Madison as a coach, was when I went into a home, I could speak from the heart about the opportunity at James Madison and what James Madison did for me. and about the schools, the educational system there, about the wholesomeness of that atmosphere there. And so it was an easy sell for me because I spoke from the heart. And the people there were terrific. And I still hold it true to my heart. I think I love that place. I love the area. It's a beautiful campus. They did just get a brand new arena. I wish we would have had an arena like the one that just got put up. I think it's up now.
It's nice.
But during those days, that Charlie is your uncle. Is that right? What is Charlie? Your brother-in-law?
Actually, father-in-law. Yeah, father-in-law. Yep.
Father-in-law. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
So let me go back to the days I played at James Madison. At the time, it was Madison College. But I got to share this with you. I got to share this with you. So I grew up in Bassett, Virginia, but I watched Charlie Thomas, your father-in-law. I watched him play at Virginia Tech.
Mm-hmm.
Before that, he went at Ferrum Junior College. And Ferrum Junior College was only about maybe 40 minutes from my home. And I remember going to watch him play. And then he went to Virginia Tech. And Charlie Thomas was the greatest player I'd ever seen play live until I saw, an ABA game in Ronald Civic Center. And I tell Charlie this all the time, and he thinks I'm BSing him, but I just love this game. And I kind of model my game after him. And then when I got to Harrisonburg and playing at James Madison, we used to have these unbelievable pickup games up in Sims Rec Center.
Yeah, absolutely.
In Harrisonburg with B.J. Thomas and Charlie Thomas, and we used to have some great games. And those two guys made me the player I am today because every summer I would go and be challenged by those guys. And then also Ralph Sampson at the time was only 13, 14 years old, but he was almost 6'9" at the time. And he was a good player in his own right. So some of the best games I had during my collegiate career were those games I played on the hill there at Sims at Harrisonburg High School with Charlie Thomas, BJ, Ralph Sampson, and those guys.
Hey, that's some history right there, man. And Sims is actually still up over there too, man. I like that.
Yeah, no doubt. But I've been truly blessed. You asked me earlier, did I want to get into coaching? Yes. And then once I got into it, I just never wanted to leave. And, I spent the 5 years with Nike, but that was just like coaching. I was always in the gym and dealing with players and dealing with elite players, like Derrick Rose and Kevin Durant, people like that. And just always been in the gym and running those camps, the Kobe Bryant camp, the Vince Carter camp, LeBron James Skills Academy. But I still had an itch to get back into college coaching. So I was very fortunate that when Fran McCaffrey was named head coach here in Iowa, I really was excited about that. I'd known Fran, again, ironically enough, because he used to work at the University of Maryland's basketball camp as well.
Man, everybody was working that camp.
That camp was terrific. And so we go way back. And Fran, we had mutual respect for each other's game. And when I saw him at the Final Four the year that he got the job in Iowa, I asked him about an opportunity, and he said, "Sure, call me on Sunday, and you and I can talk, and I'll bring you in." And the rest is history. So I've been here now with him for 10 years, starting my 11th season here at Iowa. As always, people say it's not who you know sometimes, it's who knows you. But it worked both ways with me and Coach McCaffrey. So it's been a wonderful ride here. It's great to work in a program where, you have fan support. You got the TV exposure. You're working with a guy that has utmost respect for you. So he gives me latitude to do what I need to do and knowing that I can get it done. And so I've been more than pleased being here. And I'm at the age now, am I looking for another college head coaching job? I would always be open to take another one. But Mike Fratello told me once, I was asking his advice on a certain situation, and he used this phrase. He says, "Well, sure, Mom, are you happy?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm happy." He says, "But don't mess with happy." And that always resonated with me. And so I don't want to say I've gotten comfortable, but I've just enjoyed this experience, and we've had success. I love the players that we have in the program. And to your point, we have a good team coming back next season. So I've been wise enough to stay where I am and make this work. But if another opportunity comes up, I'm not going to say I'm not going to jump at it, particularly if it's a head coaching opportunity for me.
Hey, like I said, that's very understandable. Now, going back to your time at Nike, what was that like for you, man, in terms of organizing some of those high-profile camps? You named some of the people you worked with there and hosted camps for, in terms of Kevin Durant, Derrick Rose, LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, just to name a few. Was there ever a player that stood out to you back then from your interactions or that you saw participating at the camp and that person just stuck with you?
I got two different extremes. Klay Thompson, you know how great Klay Thompson is a player right now?
Yeah.
Everybody knows. It's terrific, right?
Absolutely.
Terrific.
One of the best in the game.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, one of the camps I was running, it was my job to identify the top players, to come up with the list, to basically invite the players and decide who's going to be invited to those camps. And so we had these skills academies, and, you know, we only were going to invite 20 to 25 players at those camps. So we would invite 20 of the top point guards in the country. Then it would be 20 of the top wings in the country. There'd be 20 of the top forwards in the country. Klay Thompson was one of those guys that I got a call from my boss at the time, George Raveling, and said, Sherman, we need to invite Klay Thompson. And I said, well, Klay's not on my list, friend. I said, God, he's not on our radar. You know, and I got a list here of about 60 kids, and he's nowhere near the top. And George says, well, Sherman, we got to invite him. I says, well, okay. And I forgot, I didn't even realize it was Michael Thompson's son, right? And so I go, okay, George, if you say so, let's do that. So I invite him, and, you know, he had a decent camp. You know, it wasn't like he didn't belong at the camp, but he was nowhere near the top of the other guys we had at camp, you know. And so look at him now and how it turned out. He just blossomed into a terrific player. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, running the Nike All-American camp, one of the guys, we had more kids invited to that camp, but that was held in Indianapolis. We would invite 150 to 200 players to that camp. And it was during the summer months, and Kevin Durant was heavy on my list. One of the first trips I made, part of my thing was to build relationships with players. And one of the first trips I made working for Nike was going flying into Washington, D.C., and meeting with Kevin Durant, his stepfather and mother, and his AAU coach. We just sit down at dinner at Ruth Chris and had a nice dinner. And a part of that is building that relationship and hoping that I can get him to camp. Well, as it turned out, he had summer school and had an obligation where he couldn't make it to camp, and he showed up the last 2 days of camp. So this is where it gets a little interesting. So I still decided to invite Kevin to come to camp. He said, I can come for 2 days, Coach, if you want me to. I said, yeah, we'd love to have you. So he comes out for 2 days and he ends up getting MVP of the camp.
Jeez.
And so I have to make that decision, and I give him. And so I got a lot of static for that. Like, wait a minute, he shows up, he misses 3 days of camp, and he shows up in 2 days, and he gets MVP of the camp. So those were the two extremes. But the joy of that was, I think it working for Nike. Obviously, it was. My coaching experience helped me work for Nike because it helped me with the ability to identify players. And I think you're always evaluating and trying to see if a player can play at a certain level. Well, at Nike, it was even more fine-tuned because now you're dealing with the elite of the elite, the top of the top. And that's really, really hard. When you're trying to find the top 20 players in the country or in a certain position, you have to really, really have the eye for that. And I think I honed my skills in terms of evaluating by doing that beforehand. And then when I got to Nike, I think it even became better. So now as a college coach, in terms of evaluating, my experience at Nike has helped me tremendously here at the University of Iowa. A is the evaluation process I worked on, but B is the connections I made while working for Nike. And, you know, working for Nike, you have maybe 60, 70 AAU teams that are under your umbrella. So you're dealing with all these AAU coaches and directors. And I think that has helped me with relationships. So, and when I talked to Fran about coming to school here and working with him, I said, Fran, I'm not saying I can call up an AAU coach and he's going to deliver a player, but I think I can call up an AAU coach who's going to pick up the phone. I said, part of it is just being able to connect with these coaches. Right. And that helped me when I got on board here my first few years here at Iowa, because I still had those relationships built with like Boo Williams down in Virginia, you know, and Renee Pulley in Minneapolis, you know. And so it was a great experience, rubbing shoulders with not only some of the best in the world in terms of the NBA players and collegiate players, but even dealing with celebrities, you know, Hollywood people, Michael Jordan's camp. I would work Michael Jordan's camp. It was called the Flight School. And you'd see Will Smith's wife walk in with his son, and they would play in those camps. So in terms of that, it was just a glorious position. And I got this moniker, like people would say, that's the Nike man. Like, I really wasn't a Nike guy, but in their mind, their perception was this guy is walking in the air. He's the guy that carries the power because he's the one that's inviting these great players. So my phone would ring off the hook. And when I took the job, I asked George Raveling, I said, George, it's one of those things, a business thing you do when you interview for a job. You say, okay, George, what's the toughest part of the job? And he says, you got to say no to so many people. And truer words have never been spoken because you have everybody thinking that their son belongs in that top 20 at a skills academy. And so you have this thing where your phone's ringing off the hook and everybody's trying to push a certain kid, a certain player. And eventually you have to say no to some kids. And that was the toughest part of their job. But I wouldn't trade everything. I thought it was a great experience for me. I did it for 5 years. But I still enjoy coaching college basketball, having a family, a team around me, the staff, the trainers, managers, fan support, etc. So, again, I've been blessed in that regard, no doubt.
Now, you mentioned just connecting with people and your ability to make connections with that job. I also read that you have an amazing connection with players too, whether it's recruiting them, but then even whenever they get on your team, like you have that, I guess, relationship that lasts with players. Now, can you attest to that? Is there a reason for it? Like, where did you learn how to make connections growing up?
I think in life and in business, it's all about relationships, but it goes back to what I said earlier about the why. Like we do certain things in life, and I think once you can connect with and identify your why, I think it helps you become successful in any endeavor. And as I said earlier, I just enjoy helping people succeed. Like I said, my high school coach took me under his wing, and I don't know where I would be had it not been for him because I had basically given up on basketball. As an eighth grader and ninth grade, I got cut from my basketball team. As eighth grade and ninth grade, I was at George Washington Carver High School. This was before they had integration. We had segregated schools. I would bus 8-9 miles to George Washington Carver, and Bassett High School, which was a predominantly white school, was a mile from my home. And I just decided to go there the year before they had forced integration. And basically, I just feel like, I said, Coach Nestor was the reason I made it out of Bassett, Virginia. No disrespect to anybody there. Because he gave me an opportunity. So as a 10th grader, I sat the bench, did not play hardly at all. But every day after practice, he kept me in there. During the summer months, he would come pick me up and drive me, and he would give me some drills. And he'd play me one-on-one and kick my butt. And by junior year, I became the leading scorer on the team, averaging 18 points a game. And my senior year, I averaged 22 points a game and got a scholarship offers. So I ended up at James Madison, but Richmond recruited me. Virginia Tech recruited me. And all because of this guy, Coach Nestor. And so I felt like, you know what, I'm going to give back. I'm going to do that. And so now it's about why am I doing it? And so when I'm recruiting kids, I like kids, high character guys, and I love to see guys do well, and I love to see them come into the program, and I want to work with them and coach them and teach them not only drills to improve their game, but just talk about life. And, when I was young, my first opportunity at the University of Maryland, I'm coming in from James Madison, but I had instant credibility with the players at Maryland because during that summer before I came on board, I was playing in the counselor game at Justice Camp. And but I was a decent player and I had much respect. So I'd garnered the respect of everybody in that Maryland circle. So, but it was about building relationships with people like Buck Williams and Albert King and Ernie Graham. And they all respected me. And so because I'm young, I can shoot the breeze with them, but there's a level of respect. And so I learned that if someone respects you, then you can build that relationship, but they got to know that you care. Mm. And so I put this formula together where I'm going to work with them, but they got to know that I care about them not only, and I'm not going to be a yes man with them. I'm going to tell it like it is. And I was always that buffer between a player and the head coach. And so they all knew they could come to Sherm, because they felt like I wasn't that much older than a lot of the guys, but they felt comfortable coming to me. So from that point, as an assistant coach, I was an assistant for 15 years. So I spent most of my career been an assistant coach. And my job is to, recruit players, identify great players, bond with those players, and deliver those players to the respective schools. And so I know the most important part of that is building relationships. And I've always done that. And even when I became a head coach, I think the players are I hate to put it like this because people think we're talking about an inanimate object, but they're your assets. And if you don't take care of the players in your program, you're going to falter. And so I've always done that, and I always felt like I have a rapport with all our players, and not just the players I recruit. I have a tendency to we do this, it's just natural. Guys you recruit, and you're primarily responsible for bringing into the program, you spend more time with those guys, but I do it with all of the players. I do it. And I've been, I'm getting on up there in age right now, but I still have a way about me. You know what I mean? It's like one of those things, like I said this to one of our players at the end of the season. We were sitting around and they called everybody Coach. Coach McCaffrey, Coach Spiro, Coach Taylor, Sherman. Like, I'm the oldest guy on the staff, but the players feel good enough and comfortable enough to call me by first name, and I don't care. And I think that helps, that breaks down that barrier. And we have nicknames, and they call me a nickname. I'm not going to share that with you, but but that's the kind of and it doesn't bother me. Like Coach McCaffrey sometimes will correct him and say it's Coach Dillard. And I said, no, I'm good, I'm cool, because they know that we can have that kind of relationship, and yet they still respect me. And if I'm giving a scouting report, all eyes on me, and they're listening and everything. Off the court, we can have all kinds of fun and playing pool with them, ping pong, and all of that stuff. And I think and another thing that coaching has done for me, it's unbelievable. It's kept me young.
Yeah.
It's kept me young, and you talked about a dress code, so they get a kick out of a dress code. Like Len Bias used to love the way I dressed, and Jeff Baxter, Adrian Branch. And I'm not bragging. I don't know if I'm that.
No, hey man, everybody speaks very, very high. I mean, where did that even come from? Because they talk about you in this bow tie. I mean, your dress game. They say it's not even a competition. You're just killing everybody out there.
Well, it's funny. I guess it's my third or fourth year here. The media they kept calling me up to basically interview me. They called the sports information guy up and say, we want to talk to Coach Dillard about his dress code. And 3 times in a row, 3 years, I said, no, I don't want to talk to him about that. He said, why? I said, I don't want to be noted for my dress. I have a resume as a coach, and I've done extremely well as a college basketball coach. If he wants to talk to me about recruiting, I'll talk with him. If they want to talk to me about my ability on-floor coaching, I'll talk with him. But I said, I do not want an article about my dress code. I really don't. Because I think it says he's just a sharp dresser. Right. And I says, so twice I turned him down, 2 years in a row. I said, no, I'm not doing it. And he couldn't understand why. I just don't want that to be my thing. I don't want them just judging me based on my dress code. It's a secondary part of who Sherman Dillard is. So finally, I think it was last year, I decided to give in. And it could be only because the guy said, listen, I'll make that a secondary part of the article. It won't be, Sherman Dillard's dress code. So he did an article, and it was about 1/3 of it was about me coaching and my background, but the other 2/3 was still about my dress code. And so I got ripped a little bit about that and locally and all that stuff. But I don't know. My mom told me to just dress a certain way to impress, and I don't overdo it. I think it's just I got into the bow ties. It's funny. I was wearing bow ties at Maryland for a while. This was I was young. I was mid-20s, and I wore a bow tie a couple of times, and I never wore one since. And I got here, and I don't know what tricked me to put on a bow tie one day, and I wore a bow tie, and the fans, Twitter now. Everybody's talking about this, and we won the game. So I wore the bow tie, and we won the game. So now it's one of those things. And stupid me, I get on Twitter and I go, fear the bow tie. So I post fear the bow tie. So now the fans on this whole kick about I got to wear the bow tie. So I started wearing the bow tie like almost every game. And if I didn't wear the bow tie, the fans would rip me on Twitter. Like, Coach D, where's the bow tie? Where's the bow tie? I go to a golf tournament in the middle of the summer. In the middle of the summer, it could be July, and I'm at a golf tournament, and fans will come up and say, "Where's the bow tie?" And I got on a polo shirt and shorts. So it was something that I just kind of had some fun with and ran with it, So that's it.
All right, major respect. No, the last question, man, before we let you go and everything, just wanted to talk a little bit about, man, when you got inducted into the JMU Sports Hall of Fame, man, what did that mean to you?
It's very touching, and I was honored. As I said, I was the first one in my family to go to college, and 7 of us growing up. And I was 5th in line. And I chose James Madison because of Lou Campanella, the head coach. Liked him, an Italian guy, fast-talking guy. My mother liked him. And then Mike Fratello, another Italian. You're talking about sharp dresser. Now, Mike is a sharp dresser. And so I just had a terrific experience there. I went in without it. Here's my mindset, and I wish kids had this mindset today. I went in with the mindset, I'm going to go to college and hopefully play JV ball my freshman year. And hopefully, maybe by the time I'm a junior, get a chance to play varsity. And then in the meantime, get a good education. That was my mindset. Little did I know that I would come in as a freshman and start as a freshman on the varsity team at the time and average 20 points a game and score 20 points a game for my whole career and score 2,000 career points and become an All-American. So James Madison, to me, it's a classic example of picking the very perfect fit for you. Mm-hmm. I could have gone midway through my career in Madison. I could have transferred and probably Virginia or Virginia Tech, bigger programs at the time. But I was loyal to JMU because JMU was loyal to me. And Mike and Lou Campanelli did such a great job of keeping me grounded. And I had a great experience there. So when they called me up and said that I was going to be inducted into the Hall of Fame, I was floored. I really was. I forget the year that was in the 80s, but it was I remember being there, and they inducted 2 or 3 other people at the same time, and obviously I cried before I went up. But that place is dear to me. It really is, and it still is. And I spoke with every coach that's been there since I left. I just spoke with the new coach, Mark Byington. Mm-hmm. Just got the job, Lou Rowe, before. The guy that got the job right after me, he was my assistant at one time at James Madison.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So the AD that was there when I was there, Jeff Bourne, is still there.
Bourne was there that long?
Yeah.
Gee.
Yeah, Jeff Bourne, yeah. He was there when I was there.
Wow.
Yeah. They hired Jeff, I think it was my second year there, came in from Virginia Tech, and his sons and my sons used to hang out together a lot. And he and Mary Lou were there, so he's been in my house. I was at his home. Yeah, so
awesome.
They're good people,
man.
Really
awesome
good people. And the late Ron Carrier, the president, was the one that was behind all of that, and he's the one that built that program from scratch, from being at one time a ladies' school, a girls' school, to Division II to Division I, and to, like I said, Lou Campanelli taking it to the NCAA tournament, hiring Lefty Drizel before I came there. So beautiful school, and now academically it's doing great, and football is doing a terrific job. I mean, they've won a national championship. So, but again, I'm humbled by all of that, because if you knew where I came from and the town I grew up in and the dire straits I grew up in, I think you could relate to how proud I am of where I am and what I've been able to accomplish. And I just hope that I can continue to give a few more years to this business, if you will, and continue to stay healthy, continue to have good friends, and continue to build good relationships.
Man, I like that. Hey, Sherman, man, we definitely appreciate you again for hopping on the podcast with us. This has been a blast. We wish you nothing but the best going forward, man. So, yeah, just keep being great in everything that you do.
Yes, thank you a lot.
All right. Thank you, guys.
No problem.
Appreciate you.
No, I appreciate you.
Be good.
All right, bye.
Bye-bye.